Rich Schefren, man, welcome, brother. How are you?
I'm very good, Chris. Excited to have a conversation about what we're going to be talking about.
Dude, I am too also. This is probably one of the most requested topics that we get when it comes to entrepreneurialism. It's brain health and it's how you do more than what most people do, right? Because
Mhm.
you're tuned in. Um, but before we get into that stuff, give me, let's just wrap for a couple seconds. Like
Sure.
how's your day so far?
My day was pretty good. I got up early, jumped rope, uh, had a few meetings, did a little bit more jumping rope in between meetings, and you're my last call of the day. That's at least scheduled. So now I can just kick back and have a good conversation and not worry about anything else.
Dude, let's talk about that because I don't know if I think I've told you how fascinated I am by what you do with jumping rope. Like you don't do this like I do it. Like I go out back at nighttime and I jump a a little, rope that
Right.
normal people jump. Not like your children jump, but like like a normal person's jump. You jump with a real jump rope and you do it almost competitively. Like not competitively, but yes, competitively, right? With the you still use the app?
Yeah, still use the app. I get friends using it every once in a while, and then that's fun to see them jumping
Yeah.
rope, like Felicia right now, who runs my business.
Uh-huh.
She's been starting to jump rope, so I just saw she put like 1,000 jumps down.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
So what's your
Michelle,
average?
mine.
Yeah.
Well, last year I did 1,550,000. The year before that I did 1.1 million. And this year I'm hoping to do 2 million, but that might be too much of a stretch. It just depends on how many travel days I have and how many days I'm completely out of action. But generally, a good day is anywhere from like 5,000 to 10,000 jumps, which can take anywhere from like 5,000 jumps is pretty much like an hour.
Yeah.
So 10,000 is 2 hours.
So
Uh,
today you did what? You broke it up into two?
Today, yeah, today I did 5,000 this morning. That was about an hour.
Yeah.
And then in my breaks that I've had, I've done another 2,500. So I'm at 7,500 for the day. And I'm sure that I'll do some more tonight before I call it a day. Because
And that
I really do want to get, if I'm going to try and hit 2 million, I
uh,
want to get some some lead as to where I should be. And right now I'm really where I should be, not ahead
mhm.
of it. And I know I'm going to miss days and stuff like that. So that's why I want to get ahead.
And you on this app, um, if I remember correctly, you rank, and
Hmm.
depending on how much you jump during that one day will determine where your ranking is, right? And then somebody, before
Yeah.
the end of the day, somebody could knock you down, or you could knock other people off, or whatever the case is, correct?
Yeah. And there are some people that are monsters that, I mean, there are days when I'm the best in the world or the most in the world, but that's on days when the monsters are not playing. Because the most I've ever done in a day is like I think 23,000 or 25,000. It was something
Wow.
like that. But there are Koreans, or at least they look like they're Korean, like they're the language, that are posting like 23 to 25,000 a day, every day. And I'm like, Jesus. When I do 25,000, that's like I'm not doing anything else that day. Like that's like so, and it all started because um, I've always done the elliptical a lot
Mhm.
prior to, and thought I was in really good shape because of the elliptical. And then one summer we were out at our house in the Hamptons, and at that time I was taking jujitsu, and there was no jujitsu place, so I found a boxing gym, and I don't know how to box, but figured, okay, this would be cool to learn. And I went to this boxing gym, and when I went to the boxing gym, half of the room were like amateur boxers who were in amazing shape. And then half the room seemed like overweight housewives and in bad shape. And the instructor comes out and he's okay, we're going to warm up. The most important thing in boxing is your cardiovascular system. If you don't have the ability to go 3-minute rounds, like you're going to get hurt very badly. So we're going to start with 3-minute rounds of jumping rope. And I hadn't jumped rope. I don't even remember. Like, I had one when I was a kid. And so I started to jump rope. And after, I don't even think I got to, like, before I even got to a minute, it was clear to me I was not going to make the 3 minutes. And I looked over at the amateur boxers who, they had no problem whatsoever jumping rope for 3 minutes. And I looked over at the housewives and they had no problem jumping rope for 3 minutes. So I was the only one in the room that could not do it. And that had me reevaluate whether I was in good shape or not. And I stopped at Target on the way home from the gym and bought a Smart Rope Pure, that's still the same jump rope I use now, that counts for me, and it is gamified and all that kind of stuff. And I've been using it ever since, and the numbers have gone up over time. And I have found it to, I have a very obsessive personality. If I don't seem to do anything in moderation. It's something that I'm working with a therapist. Maybe one day I will be able to do things in moderation. But I struggle to do things in moderation. And, I guess I would also say that I was a fat kid and I've struggled with my weight my whole life. And so it's, I enjoy it for the gamification part. I enjoy it for the fact that I can jump rope so much now and it being a barometer of my fitness, but it's also a way of feeling more secure about not ever having my legs rub together when I walk, or, be embarrassed by my weight, et cetera, et cetera. So I still have that like fat young kid somewhere inside me that makes it less of a choice and more of a must, I guess.
Yeah, listen, I think there's two ways to go about that, right? You can go to therapy for a long time and get rid of that fat kid impression in the back of your head, and then lead a life of quiet desperation, probably because you don't have that motivation, or let them keep screaming at you and keep pursuing bigger and bigger goals when it comes to your health. Because I've known
There is,
you.
but there's also like, at least not that we're going to go down this long road, but
Yeah.
just, but it is interesting from this standpoint, because I really just started going back to an old therapist of mine that I hadn't seen in over 10 years, but felt it was a good time to work on a few things.
Hmm.
And if I can't jump rope right now, right, like let's say my ankle hurts or something like that,
Hmm.
it really impacts me. Like it affects me mentally, right?
Oh.
And that's a concern of mine, that I have to be this active to
Hmm.
feel good about myself. And the reason why that is bothersome to me, I mean, it's great right now. It has me jumping rope a lot and feeling good about myself and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But it reminds me of how, like, of other shifts that I've had to make in my life that were not necessarily shifts that I wanted to make, but shifts
Hmm.
that I had to make. So, in my 20s, in my 30s, and in my early 40s, I could pull all-nighters relatively easily. In fact, most of the work I got done, most of the writing I did late at night when everyone else was sleeping. And I was used to that way of working. Like I worked that way in college too. Like I would cram and go like a day or two going through a textbook. And when I hit like sometime in my 40s, I was no longer capable of doing that. Like, not because I couldn't pull an all-nighter, I still could, but then the next couple of days, like I was not at my best. Whereas before I would immediately rebound. And so I had to change the way I worked, even though I worked that way from college to my 20s, to my 30s, to my 40s. And it was very difficult for me to actually make that shift of like working during the day, not like, goofing off during the day and then just plowing through work at night. And I recognize that, I'm shooting for 2 million jumps this year. I'm 53. At some point, I'm not going to be able to do this. Like it's just not going to be possible. Just like it's not possible for me to pull back-to-back all-nighters anymore and feel good. Like I'm not that same person anymore. And so, yeah, so like the goal is to feel good about myself without having to do that, not to negate doing it, but to just have other ways of satisfying that like obsessiveness inside me.
Yeah. Hey, so you, by the way, that very important, and I don't want to skip past that, but you said a bunch of things in there that I think are really super important. Um, and I want to highlight uh, one thing that I don't believe anybody understands yet about you, at least not the people who are watching my channel, and it's your past. So you have a very deep history in building businesses, right? You and
Mhm.
I are, we have something very unique in common in the circle that we are in right now.
Right.
Our uniqueness is that you and I have a very long history in both online and offline companies, right? Buying companies, selling companies, building companies. And when I met you, I believe when, and I don't remember this, maybe you remember when you and I first met, but it was at least 15 or so years ago.
Mhm.
And wherever the heck we met,
Must have been a Stephen Pierce, Alicia
oh, it
Pierce
must have
kind
been
of
it must
thing.
have been at one of those events that we were both at. But I remember you you said something, you were working on something, and at the time you had an office in Florida, I believe. And you
Mhm.
said, "Why don't you come down to my office and we'll have dinner and we'll talk business." And I don't remember what business you were building at the time, but I remember we walked into your office and it was a impressive office, a real office, not like an internet marketing office, real desks, real computers everywhere. But I don't think anybody else was there because I'm pretty sure it was like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
And you were still on fire and you were so excited. We popped open a computer and you were showing me everything that was being
yeah.
built in there before we even went out for sushi that night. So what company was that that you were building?
I think I was probably writing a report, I would assume. No?
I don't recall. That was before the manifesto came out, I believe, or right around the time. 15 or
Yeah,
so years back, it had to be.
it had to
More.
be something around that, maybe something from my coaching program back then.
I
But
don't know. But you have
yeah, I used
always,
to get my best work done late at night,
yeah,
and I used to love that. I used to love goofing around all day. And then at nighttime, when everyone else was like at home and sleeping, like powering through work.
yeah, I was the same way. That never really early in the mornings, but all night because it was so peaceful and there was
Yeah,
no distractions, nobody disturbing me, and I was able to do a lot of things. But in order to do that, like my brain was like just naturally highly caffeinated.
yeah. So
Things
was mine.
changed, obviously. And I think it's really fascinating how we go through these cycles in business where you get to the point where you've grown so much that now you realize massive work isn't sufficient anymore. Like in your 20s and 30s, when you have so much natural testosterone that it's just like
Yeah,
pushing you to wake up early, excited about freaking everything. When that starts to peter off and you don't have that same drive, but you still now need to be a leader. You need to be a role model. You need to make good, fast decisions. And you need to still have the mental energy to be happy and motivated at the end of the day so you could have a family life or a life with your friends. That's when, at least in my life, I started studying brain health and brain performance and how to really do things to optimize myself physically and mentally so that I could make split second decisions, so that I could be, focused no matter what
hmm
time of day it is, up to the point where I'm ready to like turn off. And then when I turn off, I don't want to do anything as it relates to work. I don't know about you, but like I want to sit
Well,
down
I tell you
and do
that
nothing.
like that was a feeling that was very foreign to me when I was younger.
Yeah, but now,
But now it's like, yeah, now I get to like 6 p.m.
yeah,
and I'm tired. Like, I don't want to, like, I've dealt with enough problems throughout the day that, like, I don't want to deal with any more problems, like personal or professional.
yeah,
Right. And, Yeah. And that makes it much more real, like the work I have to get done during the day, because yeah, there's not that like, oh, I can just do it later kind of thing, you
Hey,
know?
what's a normal day look like? Like let's put you in a scenario because neither one of us have normal days, I don't think. So a scenario where you've had meetings,
Mhm.
you're gonna have meetings all day. Um, you're gonna have to be able to access creative thoughts as well as analytical thoughts to be on fire. I know you do some coaching with a couple of really high end companies now, so maybe you do some of that as well as your team stuff. So you have a day like that coming up. How do you optimize everything starting that morning for that day?
Okay, well, I'd say the first thing is waking up consistently at the same time, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't really matter what time, but that it's consistent. So I wake up at
6.
6 a.m. And the first thing I go through is kind of what's called it's broken up, but the superhuman protocol,
Mhm.
which is it was developed by Da Vinci Medical, the guy that runs that, and it's PEMF, followed by red
Well,
light.
so can I interrupt
Yeah,
you? Because I know you're not gonna.
yeah,
I'm not gonna blow your train of thought.
no.
Um, but describe what these things are because
Okay.
PEMF, I know what they
Yeah,
are,
so
but I don't know if
PEMF
anybody else.
is pulsed electronic magnetic frequency.
Mhm.
It's similar to grounding, but times 100, right?
Mhm.
Like, and there's a lot of benefits to it. It supposedly helps your blood declump, which then helps transport more oxygen through the body, plus a bunch of other things. I use um, the brand I use is called the Cloud, and it comes in two sizes, a like kind of portable size and also a bigger mat. The bigger mat, like that's what I did this morning.
Mhm.
When I got up at 6, I put it down and I just lie on that on my bed. It's like I'm in bed for an extra 15 minutes while I'm doing that. This, this happens to be a smaller version of it, that just opens up.
That's cool.
And so a lot of times I'll put this on my chair,
Mhm.
um, and sit on it during the day, especially if I'm not sure. The goal with this is you're supposed to do it twice a day,
Mhm.
12 hours
Okay.
in between to just keep things working. But this is PMF. And then the next thing I do is red light. I'm a believer in that. I've got, let's see, I've got big Juve panels, like, 4 of them on one thing with wheels right over there, and then I have another one to the right. So I stand in between them, like front and back. Do that for 20 minutes. There's a lot of benefits to that, like for skin, for mitochondria, but I also just use it because I don't know if it's the bright light. I don't know if it's psychosomatic, but it also just makes me feel happy. And
Do you have
so
eyes open or eyes closed
I
when
do
you
it
do
with
that?
my eyes open. It
Yeah,
doesn't
I
really
just
seem to bother
started.
my eyes.
Do you
They
notice
say if
any
it bothers your
benefit?
eyes, you should use like the eye things, but they don't bother my eyes.
Do
And
you notice any difference with your eyesight since you started doing that?
well, it certainly, when I don't do it,
Hmm.
my eyesight is not as good.
Okay.
And there's some scientific reason for that. Like even on the Andrew Huberman podcast, even though he's not as big a fan of photobiomodulation, which is the red lights,
Hmm.
he is a fan of it for improving
Vision.
your current eyesight in the
Yeah.
moment that day, right?
Yeah.
Like because it gets more energy into the mitochondria, I guess, of the eyes or something. I don't know. But I will do that. Then I'll jump rope. This isn't an ideal thing. I'll jump rope for a little while, a couple thousand jumps, um, possibly like 3 or 4 thousand jumps, which will be anywhere from like 30 or 40 minutes. When I'm doing that, I generally have my sauna heating up, and I'll jump in the sauna like immediately, like with my heart rate elevated. I will jump into the sauna like from jumping rope, and then after the sauna, although I've
What,
been a little
what
remiss
temperature?
recently,
What temperature are you at?
in the sauna it's 196 degrees.
Oh, Okay, great. And I
Um,
know you've got a traditional like I do.
yeah.
So we're not talking
And it's
the
196, like midway towards the top. Um, I've moved that sometimes to see,
yes,
and when I move it
the big
really
difference.
down to the left-hand side, then it gets to like 240 degrees in there, and I can't stand it. So I've moved it back to like,
Yeah.
because what I did is I moved the temperature sensing mechanism. I moved it all the way to the right, took a regular temperature thermometer, put it up where it
Mhm.
used to be, and then that's getting up to like 240. But then I can't stay in it for more than like 8 or 10 minutes, and I want to
Yeah.
stay in it for longer than that. So I generally stay in between 20 and 30 minutes, usually 30. The last 5 minutes really suck for me. Like I
Same.
can feel my heart rate throughout my body. Like
I
my whole
feel it
body is like
in my temples.
pulsing. And from there, then generally I jump in the cold plunge, which I've been a little remiss this past couple of weeks on. I've been doing it, but not as much as I normally do, just because I've been a little bit of a wuss. No reason other than that. And then I will generally heat myself back up because I tend to stay in it for about 4 or 5 minutes. That's how long it takes for my heart rate to get to its lowest number.
What
So
temp?
what's that?
What's your temp on that?
40 degrees.
Got it.
Yeah. So like my heart rate will go up to like about 130, 135 in the sauna. And then I will get into the cold plunge. And then about 3 minutes later, my heart rate will be going down somewhere. The lowest it's ever been is 30, but it's generally somewhere between 30 and 40 beats per minute. And then I get out. And the cold plunge to me is very easy. There's reluctance because it's not pleasant, but it's really not that bad. It's the cold plunge is for me is not as bad as the last 5 minutes in the sauna. It'd be very difficult for me to get into the sauna if it felt like those 5 minutes immediately. Like, I kind of like warm into it. But then after the cold plunge, I'm freezing.
Mhm.
Like my girlfriend, she jumps in, she only goes in for like a minute. She doesn't get that cold afterwards. She's much more colder while she's in the cold plunge. I get much colder after I get out of the cold plunge and tend to shiver quite a bit. If I don't exercise, I'm shivering for the next hour and a half, to two
Wow.
hours. Yeah, like my body takes a long time to heat back up if I don't exercise. If I exercise, it heats back up in 10 minutes.
Mhm.
So generally, that's when I'll do EWAT, which is the third part of the superhuman protocol, which is exercise with oxygen therapy, where you're going back and forth between breathing 14% oxygen and then breathing 100% oxygen, then 14. You're doing it on a bike.
Mhm.
So your heart rate is up. You're then depriving your body of oxygen. Then you're flushing your body with oxygen, then doing it again and again. That's like takes about 10 minutes. It oxygen, oxygenates. I can never pronounce that word.
Oxygenates. Yeah.
That's the body. And then I might jump more rope, or
Mhm.
depending on like time, that I've done everything I needed to do, you know? And, there was a time in my life where how I started my day was very different. And I think that when I used to start my day this other way, it was very beneficial for me. I think I've reaped a lot of those rewards for all the years that I was doing it differently. And what I was doing differently back then was I wasn't jumping rope, I was doing the elliptical, and I was speed reading on the elliptical. And what I'd be speed reading were my book notes from books I already read. So I was training myself to read faster. At the same time, I was reviewing a lot of the books I've already read and highlighted, and these were now the highlights. And I did that for years. And I think that I put in so much time doing that, that so much of that is now locked in my head, that there's a part of me that feels like I'm kind of like I should really be still doing that, because I know how beneficial it was for me doing that for so many years. But I also find that I have access to all those things in my head at this point. So, and I probably will go back to that at some point, just when I want to do a refresher. But I bring that up because oftentimes I would go through books that were relevant to whatever I was working on. So if I was working on something related to copywriting or something like that, then I might be that morning on the elliptical, and I would do an hour. I might review all my highlights on all the copywriting books I've read over the last bunch of years as a refresher, just to kind of have it in my head, right? And or whatever the topic was, I've generally read a bunch of books on it, so I have it. And so that was really useful for me back then, and I'm sure it would be useful for me now, but I just have different priorities.
Yeah. I so I want to go deeper into like you did the physical aspect. So I want to go into diet, and then I want to go into supplements, and then anything else that we could talk about as far as that goes with peptides, meds, anything like that. But
Okay.
before, but let me so I think we're both very much in alignment with some of the things that we're doing. And you and
Mhm.
I have had this conversation many different times. We do things in slightly different orders, but you do so much more than I do when it comes to cardio. It's so like you like
Well, I'm
I am
blessed too. Like, I'm blessed from the stand. I mean, everyone's different. Everyone's got a different body type. You know,
yeah.
what I struggle with is I can gain weight really fast. That sucks, right? The plus side of that, though, is that I also put on muscle really fast.
Hmm.
So most people think that I lift a lot when I don't lift at all, right? That so like I benefit, like the jumping rope is enough for me to put on muscle to do everything that I want, right? And I don't really want to be any bigger than I am now, because I feel like I'm a good size. I'm not big, but I'm also only 5'9". And if I got bigger, I feel like I would look even shorter. So I'm happy. Like I want to stay exactly the way I am. Maybe get more lean, but that's about it.
Uh,
Nothing, you know. So it can be easy when, when your body responds like mine does, I guess. That's my point.
yeah, I definitely I I'm definitely impressed, I should say, but um the amount of cardio that you do is something that I strive for. I don't do a lot of cardio. I don't do a lot of cardio for many different reasons. Most of the biggest reason is that I'm a puss, and I just hate it so very much. Um,
You got to find
and
your jump rope.
what's that?
You got to find what will be the equivalent to you as
Yes.
jump rope is to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I love jumping rope. Like, it's much more fun than being on the elliptical. It's much more, it's fun for me, you know?
Yeah. I don't find it that way. I don't
Yeah.
agree with you at all on that. I go out back and I watch, the palm trees at nighttime, and I jump rope, and I jump rope for 100 jumps. And 100 jumps for me is I'm, I'm so happy when I get to 100, and I'm like, God, that's great. Like I've done it for 500, and I'm amazingly exhausted at that point.
Yeah,
Like
it gets
that
tiring.
that's a chore
I'm
for me.
drenched. Yeah.
And that's not all in one shot. That's in
Mhm.
5 different shots. I'll do 5 sets of 100. Um, but 100's good for me. But in other case, in order, like I'll wake up, and I don't do the same kind of red light you do. I just do it for eyes. It's not that I don't believe. I believe heavily in full red light. I just haven't gotten a unit yet. But I do red light for eyes, and then immediately go into ice. So again, you and I do things in slightly
Mhm.
different orders. I get into ice, and the reason is because I vehemently hate the ice bath. I mean, with every cell in my body, I have to tell myself a story as to 12 reasons why I need to do this in order to get my ass into it every morning. And it's hysterical every morning. I'm like, man, maybe today's the day I won't do it, but I
Right.
do it. And I do it, and then as soon as I get out of it, I go and I work out immediately. And then right after my workout, I get into the sauna, and 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 then I'm pretty much done. By the way, I'm doing all that fasted, so I don't eat or drink anything other than water and a little bit of salt or something in the morning. And then I'm working, like I'm ready to work at that point. Like I eat breakfast and then I'm ready to work and I pile through everything and I'm good to go for many hours. And then when I'm done, I'm done. Like I'm done mentally, I'm done physically. But before, part of my nighttime routine for the last 2 years or so has been jump rope for a short, for a normal person, I jump rope for a long
Yeah,
time. For you, I
yeah.
jump rope for a very short time.
But if
Outside,
I'm if I'm jumping rope at night, generally I'm getting stoned, and which might sound weird to people. But yeah, I will get stoned and then I will jump rope, and I find it's like I go into like a tunnel, like
wow.
uh because I'm stoned, and
Yeah.
I can still keep my rhythm and stuff. And yeah, and I'll generally jump rope in this office. So I'll make it dark. I'll turn on a TV and I'll
Mhm.
just be like watching fighting or something, and I just get into a zone
Hey, how
and
does that
love it.
so you track everything, right? I don't
Mhm.
know, you're using an Aura ring, but you are you
I
tracking
use an
other ways?
Oura ring, a Whoop, and then I also have
Okay,
um
so so
I'm monitoring three different devices because I feel any individual device could potentially be off.
mhm,
So
I agree.
I like to rely on three.
Mhm,
So when they all agree, then I take it to the bank. But if they don't all agree, and I'd say they all agree about 60% of the time,
mhm.
sometimes two of them agree, one disagree, like, but when all three agree, that's generally, I feel like, okay, I can bet that this is right.
So what is the difference between your tracking, your measurements
Mhm.
from when you're not stoned than when you are when you're jumping rope?
Um,
Or is there not? I imagine there
there's
has to
really
be.
not.
Really?
Ask me that, like, I'm not sure what between what and what
So
between,
jumping rope
yeah.
and jumping rope stoned.
Um, yeah, there's not a big difference. And what's interesting, well, okay, so we talked about this off air, but let me just also mention here that my body is somewhat unique. Everyone's body is unique, but my body's like seems more unique than most in the sense of how my body responds to things.
Mhm.
And so I'm generally like I take a lot of stimulants during the day, whether it's nicotine, caffeine, and everything else that I'm sure we'll talk about.
Mhm.
Um, and the dosages that I can take of those things would, I think, give a lot of people a heart attack. And when I am smoking, because I go on and off with smoking, um, I see no difference like in the amount of deep sleep or REM I'm getting, although I hear that for other people, when they smoke before bed, they get less REM. That has not been the case for me at all. And generally, I have a lot of REM, so that's never been the challenge. If I had any challenge with sleeping, it's about getting enough deep sleep. And pot supposedly can help with that because you're getting less REM, but I haven't really found that to be the case either. And I'd say, and I think you are probably in the same boat. Probably the biggest area that I struggle with is sleep. And I don't really generally have a problem falling asleep most of the time. That's generally pretty easy. But staying asleep and not waking up many times over the course of the night is what I struggle with. And I've experimented a lot, and I can't find any like significant enough pattern to replicate. Like there are days when I don't wake up at all during the night, but they're so rare and I can't trace it back to something specific. So yeah, so I would just want to caveat that like anything that I'm doing, especially when we start talking about different things and dosages, just appreciate that, like, yeah, my body generally, like what I take for a microdose, like of psilocybin mushrooms, right? Like when I give that to my girlfriend, she's like, I don't even know whether I took it or not. And
She
sometimes I
took
take
it.
a second one by accident because I didn't know I took the first one. And the only way I even can tell that I took two that day is because colors seem maybe a little bit brighter than they normally are.
Mhm.
But like when my girlfriend has one of my microdoses, it's not a microdose for her. She's tripping and like significantly, like visuals and everything. So yeah, my body just responds differently to most things.
Yeah, so let's touch on that real quick and just say, in my opinion, I know again we talked about this
Right.
prior to starting to record. In my opinion, and you agreed, I believe that um, everybody should start everything, even the things that we've talked about so far, which are all lifestyle changes.
Mhm.
Everybody should start with getting a really great doctor, a really great doctor. Like a doctor is not a doctor. I'm talking about a doctor who understands performance, a naturopath doctor who's an MD who really understands how to optimize performance mentally, physically, whatever their specialty is, preferably both. And then get blood tests. Now, I don't know how often you do. I do
Every
blood
three
tests about
months.
6 months.
Every 3 months.
You do
Yeah.
every 3 months. Great. So double me. Damn, that's great. Um, so now I got to up that. Let me
Well,
write
I'm
that
always
down.
experimenting. That's why. Right. Like, and we're adding stuff, subtracting stuff, and then we're
Yeah.
taking a look at the blood test to see like, oh, maybe too much of that. Let's
Well, who
back it off.
do you get all your blood tests through your doc or do you do it through an app?
I do it through my doctor. I've
Okay.
tried some of the apps, like Inner whatever that the one that advertised on Huberman and a bunch of the other
Oh, is that
one. Inner Tracker, I think. Inside Tracker?
Inside
Inside
Tracker?
Tracker.
Yes.
But like when I tried them, like things that they thought were concerning,
Hmm.
like my creatine levels were really high, right? But then my doctor's like, well, you take creatine. So there's no like it's not a problem, right? Like,
Hmm.
so like where they had red flags, like my doctor saw none. And where they saw none, my doctor had some concerns because he knew every single thing I'm taking.
Yeah,
So, yeah, my relationship with my doctor is one of the most important relationships in my life.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
it's,
And by the way, it's blood tests are, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please don't
no,
lose your
go
train
ahead.
of thought. The A blood test is means nothing, right? A single blood test means
Right.
nothing. It's the story that you learn, and a good doctor will be able to read the story. He's not just going to track these markers on a 3 month, 6 month, 1 year basis. He's going to look at that, or she's going to look at that, and they're going to say, look at what this is telling us. And that story is then how you can optimize yourself, which is super important.
Yeah, that and also like having those blood tests done when you're at your best, if there's some other time when you're not at your best,
Mhm.
we can kind of track down what might be the problem.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. And for anybody who's going to get really anal about it, like you and I like to get, it's not just taking the blood test at your best. It's taking the blood test in your home
Yeah.
territory. At least
Yeah.
that's what I learned. Like my very first blood test, I at the time I was living in New Jersey and I flew down to Florida where my doc was, and we went out the night before because he's a friend also. So we went out, not
Right.
crazy, but we went out and we had a really nice dinner together. And then I fasted until the next morning. Went to his office, got blood draw, and then we went and we shot guns for the rest of the day. Right. So I mean, it was a fun trip.
Right.
But then when we got them back, he's like, well, some of the things that you had that night, even though it was outside of the fasting time, they're showing up in your blood over here. So that's why some of these things I think are off. So we're going to use this as a base,
Mhm.
and then the next 1, 2, 3 blood tests that we take in the future, then we're going to learn a whole lot. Like this is not a short-term fix. This is we're together for a long time, and I think that's the relationship you need to have with your doc, somebody that you trust that much.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I totally agree. One of the most important relationships in my life. I certainly credit a lot of my health to the relationship I have with my doctor
Yep.
and him being
Um,
on top of stuff for me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's go into food. Like,
Right. So
uh,
then, yeah, so morning happens, right?
mhm.
I generally, so I've been on testosterone for, geez, well over 20 years.
Wow,
Um,
I didn't know that.
yeah,
I
I
knew
mean,
you were on it, but
I
not for
had,
20.
my, I was told in my 20s
Mhm.
that I had low testosterone. I didn't do anything about it, but like even in my 20s, doctors were telling me when I did a blood test, like your testosterone is really low. And I probably when I was about 30, yeah, so it's been over 20 years. I started with the cream,
Mhm.
like, and I think my testosterone way back then was like 180. Um, might have even been lower. But anyway, I got it up to like about 300, 400 with the cream, and that was better.
Mhm.
Did that for a bunch of years, like putting the cream on my chest every morning. And then went to injecting um, probably about at least 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, I started injecting. And then when I was injecting twice a week, like in my
Uh,
thigh. And I'd say like about 2 years ago, maybe even a year and a half ago, but sometime more recently, I went to injecting every day, smaller amount, obviously, and using a diabetic syringe as opposed to a bigger needle and doing it in my shoulder and, and
mhm.
just rotating one. And so I do that every morning. And I like how it feels having that like consistency of
Mhm.
1/10 of 1 ml every day, right? Like just doing that. Then generally, I will throw some nicotine gum in my mouth, something I've been chewing for over 20 years. And this is where my dosages start to get a little bit wonky.
Well, can
Like,
I stop you and go back
yeah,
to the test real quick?
sure.
So I don't know the dosage or the protocol for testosterone, but you and I have talked about peptides. You and I have
Right.
both done peptides. I'm sure we'll talk about that on this show too. But the testosterone I don't know about. Do you need to, because peptides in the morning, best case scenario, you're not eating anything before, you're not eating
Right.
anything after for quite a while, so that
Yeah.
they
With
have the right
testosterone, it
response.
doesn't matter.
Okay, that was my
Yeah.
question.
It's much more stable. Right.
Okay,
So,
okay, so
um,
onto
yeah,
nicotine.
so generally I'll do it in the morning. But I'm afraid to do it at night because maybe it might disrupt my sleep. I don't know.
Right.
But this is it, right? And this would be like a 10-week supply.
Okay.
So, and in 10 weeks, it's uh 2000 milligrams of testosterone. So I'm doing 200 milligrams a week. When I do,
And that keeps, so where's your number then? You said your number was at like 300 with the cream?
well, when I was injecting and just injecting, it was around 600. And nowadays it's actually higher. Even though I'm not injecting any more than I was before,
Hmm.
it's now uh, other things that I'm taking have made a big difference.
So
DHEA,
I-
right?
so I'm curious about that, because my levels went up from the ice bath.
Mine
And
did
by the
too.
way, I don't know for sure,
I think they did.
coincidentally,
Yeah.
that that the same time I started doing that,
Hmm.
maybe 2 or 3 months later, had my next blood test. It is either that or the sauna,
Hmm.
because I started them both about the same time. So
Yeah.
what is it that's impacting you?
It could be also the sauna and the ice bath
Okay.
for sure. Nowadays, my testosterone is the last couple I've done have been between 1200 and 1400, which is insanely high for me.
Wow.
Um, but I like how I feel,
Uh-huh.
and none of my other blood markers are a problem. Because when I first saw it, I was like, "Holy crap!" I called the doctor. I'm like, "Do I have to like do something? Like, is this a problem?" He's like,
Mhm.
"There's no problem. Your blood looks fine. Like, if you feel good, keep it going." So, yeah, so I will throw some nicotine gum in my mouth like I just did,
Mhm.
right? What I just threw in my mouth though is 16 milligrams.
Okay.
Um, so if you're a 5 pack a day smoker, they recommend that you chew one 4 milligram piece of gum at a time.
Mhm.
I just put 4 of those in my mouth, and I won't feel it at all, like just because of the tolerance that I
Did you
have.
ever do any research as to how long that'll stay in your system?
No, I've never
Yeah,
done
so
that.
I actually I was just driving
I
someplace
can
with a
hear
buddy
you.
of
I'm just grabbing something while you're talking, so keep
go
going.
for it. I was just driving with a buddy of mine who studies this stuff a lot, and he was talking about nicotine because he uses it every day also. I use it, but I use it on occasion. I don't use it every single day.
What's the half-life?
I don't know. He
Oh,
said
okay.
it's very short. He
Got it.
said you could take nicotine at nighttime with dinner if you're out with
Yeah.
friends, and it's not going to disrupt your sleep. I personally, I have disrupted sleep if I use it at nighttime. And I've used it several times at nighttime, thinking, well, maybe the first one or two times was a fluke. Um, but every time I use it at nighttime, I could feel my heart while I'm
Really?
laying in bed.
Wow.
Not crazy, but I could just feel it a little bit more, which, I don't like you. I don't have any problem falling asleep, but I do have a problem staying asleep.
Yeah.
On nights that I'll have nicotine at nighttime, definitely I have problems falling asleep too.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Although I haven't noticed that, I'll pay attention
Yeah.
for that. Then generally I take a bunch of supplements. Like, so I have my supplements broken up into take on an empty stomach. So
Hmm.
that's what I take first, right? Then I have a bunch that take with food.
Hmm.
So I will take that whenever I have my first meal. A lot of times I do have breakfast, so I will have it with breakfast. If I don't have breakfast, I will wait until lunch.
Hmm.
Um, and then I have an afternoon pack and an evening pack, right? Like, but I will generally have caffeine, especially like I'll have it like on my way to jumping rope, like as I'm like walking to the red light panel and stuff like that. I'm already grabbing, and I'm grabbing a bottle like this of iced coffee. And then like I go down one of two roads. A lot of times I'm just drinking the coffee, okay?
Hmm.
But there are times when I want to be really stimulated.
Hmm.
And when I want to be really stimulated, uh, I will add a compound called bromantane to my coffee. And bromantane is a unique chemical. It's a research chemical. So this is one of those ones that like I take it. I'm not necessarily recommending anyone else take it, but they can do the research and decide whether they want to do it. Uh, it's a stimulant that's also an anti-anxiety. It's a very rare combination because generally with stimulants, there's more anxiety. There's not generally stimulants that stimulate and also calm you at the same time. Bromantane is one, and you can get it in liquid form like this. This comes from science.bio. That's the website. And this is liquid form. But I also have it in powder form where I might measure out like, 200 milligrams and then throw it in the coffee and shake it up and then take that. It helps with athletic performance. It also helps with your ability to deal with cold temperature and hot temperature. So it's kind of nice. And then and so like bromantane is for when, and I'm a stimulant junkie. I'll just put it out there. Like excess, probably not healthy. Like, but my mom took amphetamines the whole time she was pregnant with me. So that could explain quite a bit. Uh,
That's winning the argument with that.
um, and then, but there are times when I want to, because I use so many stimulants,
Oh,
there are times when I want to reset, and then I won't be adding bromantane. And if I'm doing bromantane, like maybe in the afternoon, I'm also doing Adderall, right? Sometimes not. Sometimes the bromantane, I just ride that. But there's another chemical that I take that I do like, I'll cycle on it for like a period of time.
mhm.
And that's 9-ME-BC. And what it does, it was a experimental drug for Parkinson's that got shelved. But it generates new dopamine receptors in the hypothalamus. And it's one of the few things that do that. So you burn out your dopamine receptors by taking too many stimulants. And this is a way of actually counteracting that so that I still get the benefit from it.
Notice the benefit from that because I know ever since I've known you, you have been. I mean, I can tell stories of hanging out with you where you were. There's people who are chain smokers. You were a chain Red Bull drinker.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, it just like I noticed that after I've gone through a cycle of that stimulants just impact me more.
oh, okay. So then it probably is doing a lot of benefit to
Mhm.
repairing that.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm due to go through another cycle of that pretty soon.
Yeah.
But like, but I'm taking and I can share like with you if you'd like, the spreadsheet. Like I have a spreadsheet of everything I take. And so, but just to circle back, so the stuff I take for testosterone is, I think the thing that's made the biggest difference, I thought it was Tunga Ali and Fidosius agrestis. Both of those had an impact.
Mhm.
But now, like in hindsight, looking at what I took and everything, I think actually DHEA made a bigger difference. And I think that's something like once you're beyond 40, like is useful to take depending on what your numbers are. But I take DHEA as well. And then right now I'm experimenting, just started, so I'll have to see what the next blood test is. Cistanch,
Oh, I don't know that. How
it's
do you,
supposedly boosts testosterone quite a bit.
well, how do you spell that?
Let me see. Hold on a second. Um, it's hold on, I'll share my screen so you can see it. Oh, you have to let me share it.
Yep, I'm doing it.
All right.
Yep,
That's your share.
yep.
All
There you
right.
go.
All right, cool. Cistanch
Oh.
tubulosa. And at least when I did the research, it's like this part, the 50% echinida, whatever that says, like that's the important part.
Hmm.
And so this is why I get it from them. Tropics Depot is a good place. So, but I'm experimenting with that because I've heard a lot of good things about that. And but I do take a lot of things also, for my mind,
Mhm.
like it's hard to, there's so many things I'm taking that kind of overlap. You know, they could be adaptogens like ashwagandha or some of those. Like I take a lot of different things, but what is consistent is generally some kind of stimulant, nicotine gum, and yeah, that's pretty consistent. And then I have a prescription for Adderall. I don't take it daily, but I take it quite frequently. I also have a prescription for modafinil or Provigil. That I take even more sparingly. Because I find that will impact me. Like I can't take that. The only time I can take Provigil is in the morning, early in the morning. Because the half-life
What
seems really
happens?
long for that.
What happens if you take it too late?
Then I get even more sleep.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So let me backtrack
But I
before we
will
go
say
to.
that like one last thing, just like I, so when I first got diagnosed with ADD
Mhm.
and they put me on Adderall, it was mind blowing first. Like I remember the first dose I ever took it, was watching television. And I was like, I think I'm going to go clean the garage. Like the garage had been a shit show for like 2 years. And all of a sudden in that moment, I felt the strong motivation to clean the whole garage. And I did. Uh, but my dosages went up
Mhm.
so high with that stuff that like, because like it would work for a while, then again, I was taking it every day, which nowadays I don't do. Like I'll take the weekends off and stuff like that,
Mhm.
just to avoid the tolerance. But working with my psychiatrist, and he wanted to go even higher, and I was like, I think we're done. I think I'm going cold turkey. But I was at 120 milligrams of Adderall XR, right? So that's 4 30 milligram tablets, and
And that's high.
that's high. That's very high. And then
Okay.
400 milligrams of Provigil. That's 200 tablets every
Oh,
day.
on the same day.
Every day.
Holy
120
shit.
milligrams of Adderall and 400 milligrams of Provigil. And I wasn't feeling anything
Mhm.
even from that. Like, that took maybe 2 years, but I was like, this is absurd. I don't want to go higher. Like,
Yeah.
and so I did. I stopped cold turkey. What was really shocking to me, and it's like maybe a topic for another day, but like, there's no withdrawal from either of those things. Like, you quit coffee, you have a headache,
Oh yeah.
a bad one. You quit Adderall, there's no headache. There's no, like, you might feel tired, right? Like, but there's no physical withdrawal. Like, your
Mhm.
body's craving it like it does for caffeine for some strange, bizarre reason. But anyway, like, then I took a long break from it. And nowadays, like, I take it like more of like a normal human being, and I'm just cognizant that I don't want to do it every day consistently, because I will build a tolerance really fast. And I find that doing it like 5 days on, 2 days off, that works well, or just not even taking it every day if I don't need it.
Yeah. I remember, and I don't know that we should be sharing this, but when I'm gonna
Doesn't matter.
bring it up. I remember we were sitting around, and Kim said something, your girlfriend. She's amazing. She's like, I don't know what the fuck is going on inside of his body, but he takes all his shit. And his doctor says, whatever you want to do, man, your blood work is always spot on, which is crazy because
Genetics.
you do abuse yourself just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's genetics. Like, I'm very fortunate. Like, I, where I have really bad genetics is my teeth. So, like, I get it. Like, I get how lucky I am in every other area of my life,
Uh,
like, as it relates to my health. But I just had a root canal redone, like a root canal that they did 15 years ago.
mm,
Didn't hurt at all. They were surprised it didn't hurt. Now they put the medicine in. Now it hurts like an MF, right? Like, and if it keeps hurting, that root canal is going to have to come out, and I'll need another implant. And I already have 4 implants, and then I need another 4 implants. And when I was diagnosed of having the first 4 implants I needed, I went to every place that does the whole mouth in one
yep.
fell swoop, because it's around the same price. Like, 4 straight up implants are like the same price as the whole mouth, like with these longer screws.
Oh
And
wow.
nobody would do it for me. They said, you want to hold on to your real teeth. And I was like, why? I have a problem with every tooth that I have.
Uh,
And my kids have problems with their teeth. Like, it's,
uh,
it's genetic. But anyway, yeah, I'm very fortunate. My doctor makes jokes about it all the time.
well, listen, I mean, it sucks. That sucks, but everything else you've
Yeah,
got
I
in
got it pretty
spades when it
dialed.
comes to your health. That's wonderful. Uh, okay,
But it
so
is kind of crazy. I'll tell you this, right? And I know
yeah.
this is like a little bit of a tangent, but like, so yeah, I had this root canal done 15 years ago. About a
Mhm.
year ago, they told me there's a problem with it, right? They could see like there was a pocket, and that's filling with
Very dangerous.
bacteria
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And they're super shocked that that doesn't hurt me. They're hitting the tooth. You sure this doesn't hurt? I'm like, no, it doesn't hurt. Right. Like, and so anyway, they take the old root canal out, the old pins, they stuff a bunch of medicine in that hole, and they prescribe me antibiotics, right?
Mm,
Like, for it. And what's really interesting is, like, on day 2 of the antibiotics, all of a sudden I got, like, I had hit like a slump in my jumping rope, like, as far as number of jumps I could jump without
mhm.
hitting my feet, which is
Yep.
really annoying when you're hitting your feet, not because you're tired, just because you misstepped,
Yep.
because you lose all momentum. And if you have to, I like to jump like 300 to 500 jumps in every before like, even stopping for 10 seconds. And if I have to stop every 50, it gets a lot more tiring, a lot faster. Like it's just frustrating. And yeah, so I don't know if like that fighting the infection in my mouth for a long period of time was actually taxing my performance without me even knowing it. I don't know. But certainly interesting. And then just the last thing, something that my doctor recommended to me about 3 years ago now, that he was excited about and shared it with me, and he's been taking it for the last 3 years, and so have I, is extremely high dosages of glycine and N-acetylcysteine. And now I take it because those are the two precursors to glutathione. And your body, after the age of around 45, starts making a lot less glutathione. And so this restores it to its natural balance, which is supposedly better than just taking glutathione directly, because having too much glutathione is just as bad as having too little. And I think it's one of the reasons why, though, I never get sick. Everyone else around me can be sick. And I know right now, like there's a horrible like flu, cold, COVID, whatever that's going around. And I like, Kim has it right now. She's convinced that like I get it, but my body just totally fights it off, and then I give it to her. Which I guess is possible because like I just went to Puerto Rico and back, like, maybe I got it on the plane, but I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
And she listens to Dr. Huberman all the time. And Huberman was talking about NAC, right? Which is one of the part of like glycine and N-acetylcysteine. That's the NAC. He used to take it daily, doesn't take it daily anymore. And the reason he doesn't take it daily anymore is so that he can take it when he starts feeling sick, because it gets rid of the sickness really fast. I just take it all the time. And I'm taking it not to not be sick, although that's a nice benefit. I'm taking it because when they give it to people in their 70s, every marker improves dramatically, from their cognition to
Every marker improves dramatically in those studies based on N-acetylcysteine or the combination of the
the combination, glycine and
the combination.
N-acetylcysteine.
Got it.
Yeah, and in the studies, it was 100 milligrams for every kilogram of body weight. So that would have me at roughly 8 to 9 grams a day of both glycine and 8 to 9 grams of NAC. I end up really taking like between 10 and 12, just to err on the side of plus. And then just recently, like in the last, I guess, 8 months or so, my doctor also told me to like really step up the amount of taurine I'm taking. So now I take 9 grams of taurine a day, which is hard on the stomach, but eventually your stomach gets used to it.
Why? What's the taurine for?
Also anti-aging. There's been a lot of studies as of recent about taurine and its benefits. I'm taking a look at, yeah, there's a bunch of research came out, let's see, back in June of 2023, about taurine declines with age. And when they supplemented more taurine in mice, their lifespan increased pretty dramatically. And humans make less taurine as they age. And so the study came out in Science magazine, Taurine Deficiency as a Driver of Aging. That was the name of the study.
What marker or what specific mechanism it's working on inside there, whether it's mitochondrial health, telomere length, or what it is. That's fascinating. So I know obviously the
So here's what
glycine.
here's a summary of the article.
Yeah.
It says aging is associated with aging is associated with physiological changes that range in scale from organelles to organ systems, but we are still working to understand the molecular basis for these changes. Studying various animals and then it lists like a author, found that the amount of the semi-essential amino acid taurine in circulation decreased with age. Supplementation with taurine slowed down key markers of aging, such as increased DNA damage, telomere deficiency, impaired mitochondrial function, and cellular senescence. Loss of taurine in humans was associated with aging-related diseases, and concentrations of taurine and its metabolites increased in response to exercise. Taurine supplementation improved lifespan in mice and health span in monkeys.
All right. Well, taurine's on my list now.
Yeah.
Magically, that just appeared. I know you and I spoke about the glycine in the NAC a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that I care about that's over 45 who can handle taking 16 pills a day, I recommend it too, because I think it's, when you read the studies, it's pretty insane.
You're
And
talking
all
about
you
the
have to do is
taurine, or
type
you're
in
talking about the
Glynac.
glycine?
Glynac. But that's, it's
Yeah,
short. Glynac is glycine and N-acetylcysteine. I take both separate, but all the studies are just Glynac because it's glycine and N-acetylcysteine.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so what I was going to ask is anything else on the list that you think is really, really important as far as supplements that are going into your body, but I wanna like get a little bit more focused into peptides. So, which is fascinating. I mean, it's a fascinating topic. I know that my doc brought it up to me years ago, and I thought, it's a passing fad, and I don't want to have anything to do with it. And then slowly, he introduced a couple to me for my main focus is longevity, and part of longevity for me is keeping my joints healthy so that I could continue to be active. So the basics like the BPC 157 for joint health.
You're taking that orally, or you're injecting?
Well, so listen, it was injectable for my shoulder, and when I very first started, it was injectable also. I had a stomach issue maybe a year or so ago, and he switched me to oral because obviously BPC 157 is a gut peptide, and taking it orally, the idea is, and by the way, it's a liposomal oral. The idea is it will affect the gut a little bit more if I take it orally. So I don't know if it's more efficacious that way for me from a gut standpoint, but I do know that I don't have any gut problems anymore.
No.
So, yeah. So
I mean, yeah, and BPC 157 is great for injuries. That's what I've always associated with, and fortunately, I've had no injuries to need it, but friends of mine who have hurt themselves have had very rapid recoveries from it.
Yeah, I've heard some crazy good stories about it.
Donnie used it.
I've never had a miraculous thing happen. Like when I hear people, like when people tell me wonderful, wonderful things about any consumable, supplement, medical, anything, I immediately discount it because I believe a lot of people get placebo effects from things. You and I, we're at a different level when it comes to our health. So things affect us a lot differently because we're already healthy. So it's not like we're putting vitamin C into our body and we're so lacking in vitamin C that all of a sudden we become healthy, right?
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, I certainly felt that way about NAD, right? Like I've injected NAD, I've done the drips, and I don't really get the same feeling that a lot of people have. And I think it's because I just have a high level of NAD to begin with. So it's not really doing much for me. Maybe when I get older, it might.
So NAD, what does it smell like when you open up a bottle?
I don't even know.
Okay.
Like what
So
happened
if you don't
was
know that it's not a potent smell.
Because
NAC.
when I've done it in the IV drip, I'm not smelling it at all.
I apologize. Right? I'm not talking about NAD. I meant NAC. Nah.
Oh, NAC. NAC supposedly tastes like shit.
So
and the reason I say that is Kim, my girlfriend, cannot take pills. Right? Like I can grab literally a handful of 30 pills, put it in my mouth, take a swig,
sip of coffee, and you're good.
Yeah, and I'm good. She literally has to take one at a time and then have a little piece of food and then another. Like it's it's a
Yeah.
30-minute process to take 10 pills,
Hmm.
right? So I'm so sold on the combination of glycine and N-acetylcysteine.
Hmm.
I wanted to see if, and I haven't even done it. I bought it like about 6 months ago. I bought glycine as a powder form
Yep.
and NAC as a powder form, with the hope of possibly mixing it up together for Kim so that she could take the
Oh.
proper amount of dosage.
Hmm.
But we haven't done it yet. And I've been slow to do it because when I told my doctor about it, he's like, yeah, it's going to taste like shit.
Yep.
And because of the NAC.
Well, I'll tell you, NAC stinks like shit.
Yeah.
It's got a very sulfurous smell to it when I open up the bottle, and I've got it from a lot of different manufacturers. The only reason why I ever even started to notice it, though, is because the very first time I started taking it, which was maybe 2 years ago, I started to smell a little bit. And I'm like,
Oh,
what
really?
is that smell? And I was taking a lot of NAC at the time. Um,
I'm sure it
and
impacts me.
apparently it stinks, you know, and eventually if you take too much of anything, it starts coming out of you. So, that's my story about NAC. Not a good story, but I stopped taking it for quite a while, and now I
Mm-hmm.
take it intermittently because I'm afraid I don't, because I don't want to smell. That's why.
Who does? If I ever start smelling, you'll have to let me know.
I would be the first to let you know if I smelled something next to you, but and I would hope you would do the same thing for me.
I would. I would.
Okay,
There's other things that I take that do smell horribly.
like
I'm looking up, like, one of them was recommended by Rhonda Fitzpatrick.
yeah, yeah.
It's like sulforaphane or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
sulforaphane. You take
That
that.
smells
Oh, I
horrible.
so I
I
have.
take that every day. Yeah.
Do you? That's
Yeah.
wonderful for you. But I have never taken that in any form other than by grinding up broccoli sprouts.
No, I take, hold on, I'll tell you where I take it. Let's see. June, yeah, it's from, the brand is BROQ, and it's just straight sulforaphane, and that was the brand that Rhonda Patrick mentioned, and you can I buy it on Amazon.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into that. That is super good for many different things inside your body, longevity wise.
Yeah, but
Um,
like, I take, as it relates to like brain performance, right? Like, I take a little bit of Huperzine A each day, like 200 milligrams or micrograms rather. I take, I'm just looking down the list, L-tyrosine in the morning. Um, Creatine supposedly also helps with mental performance.
yeah. So how much of that are you taking? Because I just upped my creatine for mental performance.
I take just 5 grams a day,
Dude,
but
I'm
there's a
testing
different
20.
type of creatine that supposedly gets much better results.
German?
I don't know. I texted it to my doctor a while back. Let's see if I can find it in the conversation. Or you know what? I can just do creatine. Um, all right. Uh, show more. Yeah, can't find it right now. But there's a creatine that supposedly is more powerful for the brain effects. But
Well, I'd be really if you when you find that, text me. I'd
all
really
right.
be interested in that. So I just had a really good spent time with a good friend of mine who's a doctor,
Mhm.
not my concierge doc, but another one. Wonderful, brilliant dude. And we were talking about cognitive performance, and he's like, dude, you gotta try 20 grams of creatine. Take it from 5 to 20, short
Wow.
period of time, couple of months, and see what happens. Um, I don't see a difference in cognitive performance. That I don't think I think much faster than I have ever, but
Do you eat a lot of meat?
I don't. I don't.
Okay.
Well, so compared to you, I do
Right.
not. So I'll have meat. I won't have meat every day. I think you have meat multiple times a
Almost every
day,
day.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which I used to for many, many years, but so I don't have meat every day anymore. So the
So
creatine,
yeah.
is important to me. But that's interesting. So okay, so what else is on your list that you want to talk about? Because I got I want to
But yeah,
recap a
just
little
other
bit on some
things
stuff.
that like make a difference. Let's see. Uh, just looking at the list here. I take a very low dose of lithium,
Okay, I've not
50 micrograms.
for what is it, dopamine or serotonin? Is that
No,
what this is?
there's just been a lot of studies that in areas where there is lithium in the drinking supply
Mhm,
naturally, there's less suicide and less depression. So I just take, 50 micrograms is a very small amount.
mhm,
Um, and since I think that I tend towards slight depression, like my
mhm,
natural state is somewhat depressed. I think like my dad was that way, and I think I'm kind of the same way. Um, I'm vigilant, like as it relates to staying more positively framed. And like, so when I came across those studies, it was impactful to me.
mhm.
Um, I also take Korean red Panax ginseng. I'm just looking at my list and which ones like make a difference. I take alpha GPC.
Okay, me too.
That's a, you know,
Yeah,
I take I
I
take a
think that's
lot
an
of things, but
important one.
I'm just looking at the stuff that can affect mental performance. Lion's mane, I take that daily.
Oh, so I've never. I mean, I've played with it, but I've never done it on a consistent basis. Do you like it?
Yes.
Okay.
I take a high dose of acetyl L-carnitine. That's more for energy and stuff. Um, let's see. I'm just looking to see what other things here are more mental. I take dopamucana.
I don't know that. Okay, is that a nerve?
That's that has it's a extract from the mucuna plant, but it also has L-dopa in it.
Mm,
So
oh,
it's like
yeah.
dopamine. Uh, I take EGCG, right? That's
Yes.
from green tea. Um, I don't take this often because it's too strong for me, believe it or not. But Raoul sign,
What is it?
Raoul sign,
I've
R
never.
A U W O L SCINE. It's a type of Yohimbe, but it's like amped up. And when I take it, I'm like, whoa. Like, so I don't take it
Mentally or
both physically and mentally. And it might be combining with other stuff that might be why, but like I don't know. Like, I don't remember the name of the brand, but there used to be these energy drinks that came in these like
Yerba
blue.
mate.
No. That I think it was called Redline. They came in these blue bottles. This is
Okay.
like 15 years ago.
Okay.
I'm sure they're off the market because I thought they were strong. And if I think they're strong, like it's
They're
probably killing
deadly.
some people. But that I sometimes feel that with that. And then at nighttime, I'm taking all the stuff that supposedly ramps you down,
Mhm.
from magnesium L-threonate
How much of
to
that do you take?
I take 1,500 milligrams of that.
You take 1,500 milligrams at one time.
Yeah, at nighttime. I take 250 milligrams of apog apigenin.
Appenogen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
take 2,000 milligrams of GABA, and I take 200 milligrams of HTP. I take 1,000 milligrams of L-theanine. I take 1,500 milligrams of L-tryptophan, 5 milligrams of melatonin, and yeah, that's why like it knocks me out. And
Yeah.
like it knocks me out. And I know this because I once grabbed an evening baggie for my afternoon bag, and an hour later I hit a wall so hard I had to go take a nap.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, so
I
I know it
can't.
works because
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I getting so tired? Like, what the and then I look down and I'm like, oh shit, like that's why. Well, at least I know it works.
Yeah. Um, I, so I can't, I don't take the melatonin. In fact, I don't take most of this at nighttime because anything that I take at nighttime, other than maybe 500 milligrams of magnesium, helps me to fall asleep deeper
Mhm.
initially, but I'm up guaranteed. Like, I can make it if I don't take anything at nighttime. I can make it to maybe 3:30,
Yeah,
and then
that's
I
about
wake
me.
up. But if I take melatonin, I'm up a couple of hours earlier than that. Like I'll go deep for 2 hours,
Are you
then
taking
I'm
time
wide awake.
released?
I'm sorry?
Mine's time released. I don't know
No,
if
I
that
don't.
matters, but
But
yeah.
you know what? One of the thoughts I had as I was awake last night at about 3 o'clock in the morning, because I ruminate over a lot of
Right.
things. So some great ideas about stuff, including how to stay asleep. It's really a magical time for me, Rich. I thought what would be great is the magnesium threonate in a time released, not capsule, but
Right.
time released something, because that would then release if it released everything within maybe 3 or 4 hours. I think I'd have a great night's sleep, because what I do sometimes is if I do have the ability, like on a Friday night or a Saturday night where I don't have to do anything the next morning and I can stay in another hour or two, I'll when I wake up at 3 o'clock, I'll have another magnesium. And then an hour later, when I finally fall back asleep, like I'm solid for a little while.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's on my list of things to locate.
But
So
also, but melatonin does come in time released
I
for
know it
that
does.
specific purpose, because if you don't, like, you are more likely to wake up sooner.
Yeah, but there's a lot of studies around melatonin that are contradictory, and it gets me a little
Yeah,
bit
there's a
nervous.
lot. Yeah,
What's that?
on there are a lot. And because melatonin is also one of the major antioxidants of the body.
I know that.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, we could like
And we make less melatonin as we age.
I get
Like,
it, dude.
so I've read
For
some
all the
people like
good,
doing mega doses for the anti
yes,
oxidant things.
right.
So I'm
But
not
then
as
there's
like
also that
anti
it
it.
shuts off puberty, and like it's a major trigger for kids when they go through puberty. It's when their melatonin increases, and that begins to shut off. And by the way, I am absolutely not qualified to make any of these
Yeah, and
comments.
like these are all like this is
These
bro
are,
science. Yeah.
exactly. So, um, so I have good friends who tell me about these things who I believe are highly qualified, and they've sufficiently scared me away from taking melatonin and for any length of time, unless it's like I just got off a red eye and I need to sleep or something to that effect, which happens. So, okay,
Yeah.
so hey, we didn't talk about food that much.
Okay.
So and again, your diet and my diet are
Different.
similar in that we're high in protein,
Mhm.
but the sources of protein are different.
Yeah, and
I
I think you're
believe.
more disciplined than I am. I don't know if that's the case or
Oh,
not.
I
I go
totally
through
thought it was the exact opposite. I thought
Okay,
you were
so I
more
go through
disciplined.
periods where I'm very disciplined,
Mhm.
and when I'm in that groove, it's very easy to stay disciplined. And then if I go out of that groove, it's a shit show. And like, and I eat a ridiculous amount. Like
Mhm.
that's the old fat me, and like just can't get enough. Like I can eat a box of cookies myself, no problem.
Oh yeah, don't do
Like,
that.
yeah, like, you know, if I want to have a binge day,
Mhm.
like Tim's like, yeah, let's have a binge day. And after she eats like 4 Oreos, she's like ready to tap out. I'm like, what? Like, you're
What
such
a
a bad
lightweight.
partner. Like, I'm going to finish this box of Oreos. I'm then going to go and have 2 pints of ice cream. And then after that, I'm going to have like, you know, so, it's like a lot of things in my life. I thrive under routine,
Mhm.
but there's a part of me that resists routine consistently. And, so right now, like, yeah, I haven't been eating that well the last couple weeks. I actually wasn't eating well, like at the beginning of the year, then reset, did like a 5-day fast, then was eating well. Then I was traveling again and started eating crap, and I haven't gotten out of it again yet.
Oh, didn't we see each other right after your 5-day fast?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, and I haven't, I've done fasts before. I haven't done a 5-day.
Well, if you've been in ketosis
Yeah.
consistently, like I have been, then fasting is relatively easy
Mhm.
because there's no hard transition from glucose to ketones,
Right.
you know? And yeah, my body, like I spent a lot of years in ketosis straight. And I think because of that, my body's very used to it and is very inclined to immediately switch over. There's no ketone flu or anything like that. Because I was a big proponent of Atkins, like in my 20s. That's the first time I got thin. So much so I brought my dad to Atkins.
Hmm.
And it was crazy because my dad had really bad diabetes and was totally able to reverse the diabetes and go off
Wow.
all medication eating that way. But he decided he couldn't eat that way. Like he'd rather die younger eating pizza and French fries and hot dogs with the bun. And so he made up his mind and he did die early for that reason. But yeah, I'm a big proponent of it.
Okay. So normal day of food.
Normal day of food. If I'm eating breakfast, I'm going to have scrambled eggs with cheese,
How many?
3 or 4.
Hmm.
Um, then generally, it's rare that I it's rare that I have 2 meals during the day. It's either breakfast or no breakfast, and then I'm having like steak for lunch. If I have breakfast like I did this morning, I had scrambled eggs. Then I probably am not going to eat again until dinner time, and it's going to be some kind of meat.
Hmm.
Um, and that'll be like the day. And generally, that's my general, like when I'm thriving, that's generally what I'm eating. I will have eggs in the morning with cheese, mozzarella cheese in it. And then for dinner, I'll have some kind of steak and some vegetables.
So
Uh,
brain performance. Do you see a marked difference if you were to inject carbohydrates in there, or a marked difference if you eat more food
if I'm
than
eating
just those two
carbs, I get
meals?
tired and I'm more fuzzy.
You're less focused with carbs,
Yeah.
is what you're saying. And what about with more meals? More or less focused?
I uh I don't like having lots of meals. Um, so I've never been a big like many meals a day kind of person. I like takes too much time. Like one of the things I like about fasting is how much time you get back.
Yeah,
Like, and you're not even thinking about like it's crazy, like how I don't know, it just seems like you have a lot more time all of a sudden when you're
yeah.
not taking any time to eat. Um, and so because of that, I yeah, I've never been a fan of like 6 meals a day, like small, like because to me, it's like once I start eating, if I eat, I try to eat when I'm hungry,
Hmm.
and if I'm not hungry, then I'm not eating. That's kind of the deal.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
yeah. And I remember like when I first started doing that years ago, like I would tell people like I only like they'd be like, "Wow, you lost a lot of weight. You're in great shape now." And I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm just eating when I'm hungry and I'm not eating any other time, even if it's lunchtime or dinner time or breakfast
Hmm.
time. I'm not eating if I'm not hungry." And then we would go out for lunch and I'm not eating and they're like, "Why aren't you eating?" I'm like, "I told you." Like I'm not hungry right now. I'm not eating. Like and what was interesting is that was different for me, so much so that like I found that eating when I was really hungry and stopping eating when I am no longer hungry,
Hmm.
that only works if you're only eating when you're hungry, right? Like to stop when you're not hungry,
Yeah.
because, you know, uh, and I was a lot less hungry. I realized how much less I ate if I only ate when I was hungry, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if I don't, if I don't eat breakfast and I don't eat lunch, I do hit a wall. Um, and it's interesting. It took me a while to figure that out. like, cause I'd just be a little tired and I couldn't understand why. Then when I had dinner, all of a sudden I felt wide awake again. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, you know, it's, and I can totally get it for someone like me because I've burnt like thousands and thousands of calories jumping rope and
Yeah.
doing everything. And if I have not yet like replenished, yeah, at some point I'm feeling like I didn't get enough sleep last night when really my body just doesn't have the raw material to do what it needs to do.
Yeah, I am slightly different than that. Like
Mhm.
I find like I need food for my brain to really function well. I don't need to eat until after I'm done training, working out, but I do need to eat prior to working. Like if I start a work day and I don't have a meal, and my meal is similar to you, it's eggs, 6 eggs without without the cheese in it, but I'll have a piece of toast with it, um, and then
When
I'm
I'm
good.
splurging, I'll have a piece of toast with it.
And a whole handful of different vitamins. And then, but listen, I I had to get used to having these. I have these organic, homemade chocolate protein muffins, which either I'll make or somebody else will make for me. And the reason why I need them is because often I won't stop work. Like I'll be in meetings back to back with my team or with the Club 28ers or whatever it is, and I won't stop. And then all of a sudden I'll start to be like, I'm thinking just a little bit slower. I'm saying and but
Right.
more while I'm talking to people. And it's not impressive. Like I notice it and I'm like, I feel stupid right now. Like so I'll grab 4 of those, which is a
Mhm.
good amount. It's almost 60 grams of protein
Oh, wow.
and a coffee, and I'm good. Like it's a good snack to get me through. But I need that, and then I'd like to really protein up for dinner with vegetables.
Yeah.
Hey,
So same
so
on that level.
I got some rapid fire questions for you
Okay.
because I don't I know we're running heavy on time here, but I'm loving every second of this, and I really
Well,
appreciate
there's
your
no rush,
time putting into this.
you know.
But okay, what do you think 3 things are that we as entrepreneurs do? Not maybe not you and I, but maybe you and I, but normal entrepreneurs do that are killing their ability to think clearly during the day.
Um, I would say first and foremost, probably having a uh, scheduled time to go to bed and a scheduled time to wake up. I noticed a huge difference in my own life when the more consistent that is, the better I do. And I think that's partly because your body is highly adaptable. And if you consistently go to bed at the same time and consistently wake up at the same time, your body will adjust to making sure you get what you need most because it's not haphazard. It knows what
Right.
to expect. And I think that there's tremendous benefit from that. So that would be the first and probably one of the most important things. I also like on that, I noticed that like when I used to pull a lot of all-nighters and stuff like that, how much light impacted me. So if like I got to be careful, like being at this desk that I'm at right now, because there's a lot of light being thrown on me.
Hmm.
And, I have lights like all around me. And if I turn them off, right, like so, like this, like if I come in here at night and I want to do something quick, I want to put it to this because this would wakes me up. It's great like as a hack to stay productive, not so great if I'm working late and then I want to go to bed because it ain't happening. Um, but yeah, a standard schedule, really important. I think I'm trying to think of just a lot of the conversations I've had with people. You know, I wouldn't say that you need to have a stimulant. That would be probably but I do. And So I don't know if that's it, but I would say physical exercise of some sort. If you're not moving enough, that's problematic. I mean, I stand at like right now I'm standing. I spend most of my day standing. I and it's not so much Like I don't have any back problems or anything like that, but I just feel like standing is more how I want to be in life, like as far as like engaged and ready to pounce or attack. And I don't feel that way when I'm sitting down. I feel kind of laid back and in a different frame of mind. So that I would say is second. And I'm also a big fan of sunlight and stuff like that. I'm just trying to think of, I've had friends who like took nootropics and they would get headaches, and that's because they didn't have enough alpha GPC in them, right? Like if you take alpha brain and it gives you a headache, it's because it's using up, you know, certain brain chemicals that you don't have enough of. That's why you're getting the headache. And so I would say that, but I think that, yeah, some kind of fitness routine, really critical. You have to, if you don't feel good about yourself, it shows in a lot of ways. And I think that it is the way it is. So I'll just say it, even though people might not like it. Um, there's a tremendous amount of discrimination for obese people. You know, when they ask kids, like, who would you more like, kids in kindergarten, right? Like, who would you more likely be friends with? Like, they show them a picture of like a normal sized person, like missing an arm, versus like a fat kid, right? And they'll generally always pick the one that's missing the arm or the leg or the
Wow.
like. Yeah. So there's like that discrimination is built in, is all I'm saying. And as someone who was heavy themselves, like having that feeling of like being embarrassed the way I've looked, like you just can't resonate power and comfort and like happy with yourself when you feel that, when I felt that way, when other people feel that way. And I think that it's certainly important. Like, there's no doubt that I have more energy than someone who is very sedentary, just because of the amount I move, the amount I jump rope, the amount of stuff I'm doing. And I think that that's really critical. I think people, you, we judge each other a lot more than we realize. I
Yeah.
guess I'll put it at that. So I'd say those are like the critical things. I'd also say though, that probably something that we haven't touched on, but and it's not as present in my life right now, but like I said, it was present in my life for many, many years, is well, I would say a couple things that we haven't touched on. One is that it's keeping a journal. I've kept a journal for 30 years. Not every day. I mean, I try to do it every day, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I'd miss days. But I find that that's the only place that I really spend time thinking, like heavy duty thinking by myself. I mean, I'll spend time thinking with others, like like in a Zoom call like this or something. But I don't spend a lot of time thinking if I don't have my journal open and actually like writing stuff. So I find that's really valuable. And then the other thing is that learning how to speed read was critical for me. I took a bunch of courses when I was in high school and college, but I never had the discipline to do the practice. And so I never really took, because it's all about the practice. And then I was given an iPad as a gift. And I really didn't see the need for an iPad because I had my Mac Air, I had my iPhone. I'm like, where does this even fit in? But it was probably the most transformational device I ever had for myself, because I found two different apps that really made made it really powerful. One is called Voice Dream, and the other is called Quick Reader. And Voice Dream, where's my iPad? Hold on a second. What do I have here? It was there. Oh, there it is. Okay. So what Voice Dream does is it allows it will read you a book while it also paces. So you're seeing the words across the screen and it's also reading to you. The fastest that it goes is 700 words a minute. With headphones on, you can totally understand it. And, most people read like 250 words a minute. So that's already going to jump up the speed. And then quick reader is more of it's not reading to you aloud, it's just pacing through the book, right? And you can tell it how big of a pace, how many lines. I do one line, half a line. So I'm looking at, and that's what I used to review my notes in. And I would practice at, 1,000 words a minute, 2,000 words a minute, 3,000 words a minute, 4,000 words a minute, then back it down to 2,000, and then 2,000 would seem kind of slow. And then that would increase my overall reading speed for when I was reading and highlighting books to put in there. But that, and I did that for at least a decade, and I read thousands and thousands of books that way. And I think now I'm coasting a little bit on that amount of like reading that I have done. But I think, it's like physically, maintain the ideal that you can physically, mentally, like feed in like reading, like powerful books, good ideas, things like that, not just in business, but potentially other things that impact you, maybe philosophy, self-help, whatever. And then consistency. I think those three things are like the key to entrepreneurial success. And then what I would say is that making sure you have the right goals. That, for me, I went through a midlife crisis in my 40s when I wasn't happy, felt alone, and had achieved everything that I thought would make me happy. And it was a really tough time in my life. But one of the things that helped me pull through that, besides learning a lot, reevaluating my life and stuff, was also recognizing that I personally feel most alive when I'm pursuing something that matters to me. And so I don't look at like I would never say the phrase like I'm not motivated to achieve like as a complaint, like I'm not motivated to achieve my goals, because for me, recognizing that the achievement of the goal brings happiness for like a week or two, like, and that's it, right? Like, it's much more about the pursuit of the goal.
Well, yeah.
And if I'm pursuing the goal and that makes me happy, then it's the right goal. If I have to be motivated to pursue the goal, then it's not the right goal, because the whole purpose of a goal is to inspire and set a trajectory. And if it's not inspiring you to actually go out and do the thing, then it's probably a weak goal. That's the way I look at things. But so it's like picking the goals are really important, because they have to, as someone who was a move away from person, right? You could kind of break people up into moving away from pain or moving towards pleasure, right? And I think most people have a tendency one way or the other. I think that the most successful people in the world are probably move towards people. Unfortunately, I'm not a move towards person. I'm a move away from person. And move away has tremendous energy and power and force in the beginning.
Mhm.
But, like I work out not to have a six pack, even though I do, but I'm working out because I'm afraid of being fat. But the further I get away from fat, the less power moving away from has, right? Like I started a business because I didn't want to be poor. I didn't have dreams of riches. I just had this vision of being poor and not wanting that, right? Which makes it really easy in the beginning to fight against, right? But as you get further, that's the problem with moving away. Moving away works when you're close, but as you move further away, the momentum becomes less and less. Whereas if you're moving towards, you're getting closer and closer. That could be really inspiring. Unfortunately, I'm much more of a move away person. Um, but so therefore I got to pick things that I move towards very carefully, because they have to be inspiring enough to matter to me, or I'm going to be fighting it all the way through. So it's important. Like, I think, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but I'll throw it back to you. Like, I think in my 20s and my 30s, and maybe even in my early 40s, it was like white knuckling it. Like, I needed to succeed no matter what, because I didn't want to fail. I think from 40 on, about to be 53, so the last 13 years, it's been much more about like understanding who I am and how to get the best performance out of myself personally, based on like knowing, like, when goals inspire me, I'm much more likely to pursue them. That, like, all these little things that make a difference for me. It's about like understanding myself better and better. And I think that's part of maturity, is like understanding yourself and how to manage this biology in a way that gets the best out of yourself. And I think, like, after you spent 30, 40 some odd years on the planet, you should have some idea of like how you operate at your best.
Yeah, I would say understand and I agree with that. I see it in my life as my early years were I busted busted my ass because I
Flew all
was
over the world, right?
oh yeah, it
Speaking
was
on
amazing.
stages everywhere, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I used to
You
well,
especially.
that was
Yeah.
when I was in my 30s. I was doing 4 to 7 speaking gigs a month. Um and on stages with,
Yeah.
tremendous people all over the place. Different country every freaking couple of months. It was wonderful. But before that, I would work 16 plus hours a day, and be excited at the end of the day and be excited in the beginning of the day. And I'd wake up like going, and it was often to build something for me. And then I don't know where it was, 35 to 40, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
It has been since then building for other people. It's it's how do I look in front of my kids' eyes? How do I am I building something for my team, my employees, that are going to help them feed their families longer and make them proud? And so and it's not purely either one of them, but certainly 80-20 here, maybe 80-20 in the opposite direction now from that age forward. So it's a totally different driver. I totally get it. I
Right.
am more of a moving towards person than moving away from person, from what you were saying before. um I look at what I want and I'm like, all right, here's the path now. That's it, which is difficult in the beginning to get the momentum,
Mm-hmm.
because the what I want is so far away.
Right.
So which becomes you have to become very good at chunking things down, which I'm not good at.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that there are people who are wonderful at that. They work for me and they chunk things down for me. But I look at things and it's like, well, this is a 10-year goal, or this is a 5-year goal, or whatever the case is, and this is huge. It's grand. It's going to be great for everybody. And then we have to reverse engineer everything in many team meetings on big whiteboards so that I can see what our future looks like next month. And then, because the team will be able to see it much better than I will, but I need to see it so that I
Right.
know where to put my little magic sauce, or what I need to keep my finger on in order to move the needle in the right direction, doing whatever I do in the company.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Um, okay. So let me just see. So,
Yep.
hey, you said something about reading, which, like, I have to touch on, because when we're talking, and by the way, I'm gonna ask another question also, because this
Okay.
is super vital, and it's has nothing to do with supplements or eating or lifestyle, but it has to do tremendously with mental performance. You said something about reading. That's one of the questions. Like, freaking, I believe reading. I don't know how people perform without reading. I believe reading is an exercise that improves our brain, and
Mhm.
I've read every single day for my entire adult life. Um, and it's a tool that I use to help me fall asleep at nighttime. Like, it's I I read before I go to sleep every single night. I don't read business books. I don't read personal development books. I don't read anything that is going to make me think about something that I could be doing better. I
Right.
read adventure books at nighttime, and I read business books during the day if I'm going to read during the day. But I think the act of reading. I like paper. You know, the
Yeah.
digital media is wonderful, but at nighttime before you go to sleep, probably counter
Right.
counterproductive for sleep. But I think reading is amazing. My final question though, again, nothing to do with anything that we talked about, but the benefit is there. Um, Purely from a I need to I need to optimize my brain, which means I need to become more organized, which means how do I become more organized when I got a lot of shit to get done? Like one of the tools that I've used for many years is an assistant.
Hmm.
So your view on I need my brain needs to work better. One of the easiest ways to do that is clear some of the fucking clutter. One of the easiest ways to do that is hand the fucking clutter to somebody else.
Hmm.
So your view on an assistant in your life.
Incredibly important, right? Like I'm dysfunctional without an assistant at this point. Um, more like I'm the type of person who, if I'm driving my car and an engine light comes on, I'm probably going to ignore it until I have a problem, right? With an assistant, though,
Mhm.
I don't ignore it. I just when my assistant comes in, I'm like, hey, the engine light's on my car. Can you take care of it? And then it gets taken care of, right?
Right,
I'm much more proactive when I don't have to do the grunt work associated with the things I notice, right?
right.
Um, I don't like to go into my email box, like, because my email box represents everyone else's priorities, not mine. I don't send very many emails. Therefore, they're not replying to me. Therefore, they're not my highest, they're not what's most important to me. What's most important to me is texting.
Yep.
And even then, my assistant comes in behind me every day to let me know like which text messages I did not respond to so that I can make sure. But yeah, I can't function without a good assistant. And they can't really be overpaid for the right person. Um, I was actually, I don't want to give out numbers here, but Mark Ford, I was talking to Mark Ford about this like the other day. We're, I don't remember how we got on the topic, but I've I've had it where many times in my life I've had a right hand person. That's not my assistant. That's like higher up than that, right?
Yep.
Like literally my number two anywhere. And that person would get a salary, but also would get 10% of what I make, right? Like as a way of kind of like making sure that we're
Incentivize.
on the same
Yep.
page and all that kind of stuff.
Of course.
Mark's assistant makes a couple points on what he makes.
Wow.
She's a So his assistant is a millionaire many times over, right? Like, because even 1% of a billion is a lot of money. And it's that's how valuable a good assistant is, you know? And so yeah, I'm on the same page with you. The other thing is a place I would say like I would say for me, an assistant is completely like absolute vital importance. Also, just having a second person around keeps me a little bit more honest with
Same.
my schedule.
Yeah.
Um,
And gives me the ability to brainstorm every once in a while, even when it's just brainstorming to data dump or to hear my
right.
voice.
Yeah,
So amazingly important to me.
totally agree. And then I also think that, it's like there should be a place where you store your intellectual capital. I use Evernote for that,
Mhm.
but like my friend Donnie and I, like he just bought an apartment for his ex and his daughter. They're in Miami. They're not coming for another 6 months. And one of the things that we talked about was that him and I are going to spend a weekend down there before they move in,
Mhm.
where we're going to buy a course on Rome, ingest the course on Rome, and switch over because he's also an Evernote user. Switch our stuff from Evernote to Rome because Rome allows for interlinking much better than
Well,
Evernote
I've never
does.
even heard of it.
Oh, it's pretty cool. But like I'm a Evernote user. And one of the things that, it's like when I used to write reports, like free reports, and I'm thinking about writing one right now, which is actually kind of interesting. Haven't written one in like over a decade.
Yep.
But like when I used to write reports, like I used to like have index cards with all the ideas on it and put them in order and be thinking about it. And it's like, and it really bums me out that like I have these boxes.
Uh-huh.
Like, I did a ridiculous amount of research on attention when I wrote the Attention Age Doctrine 1 and 2. That information for the most part is gone. And I just wish that I had it in I mean, I could scan all these in and do that, but it would be too much of a pain in the ass. But I just wish that I was keeping my Evernote at that time, because then I'd have easy
Yep.
access to it all. And I learned something from Tiago Fort, who has a course called Building a Second Brain. And one of the most valuable things that I learned from him is that a note has value. A note's value is proportionate to how much time you've spent with it, right? And so he talks about what he calls progressive summarization. So, I read books, I highlight books, those highlights go into Evernote, but I highlight a lot. And so then what progressive summarization is like, okay, now that's a new note, all my highlights from the book. Now I'm going to read through those and I'm going to bold the first passes, I'm going to bold anything that's important. Then the next time I see that note, I'm going to highlight, I'm only going to read what's bolded at this point, and I'm going to highlight what I think is most important of the bolded. And then I will actually take everything I highlighted, bring it to the top as bullet points, and I might go through that process again, or I might now start writing like my thoughts about it. And it's not that every note goes through all those stages. It's when I'm working on something and that note pops up again because of a search or because of something, I will then go through the next process of that.
Right.
And so based on how a note appears, I know how many times I've touched it. And the increasing summarization, the increasing culling of what's most important, kind of like over time, becomes increasingly more valuable to me. And so I think that's really important, especially since most of us are not going to be doing the same thing for our entire life. That's just the way the world works. So having having a place where all your good ideas, everything that you ever came across that made you think, is all in one place, becomes highly valuable. And for me, it's especially so. And I think like on the mental side, that's huge,
Yeah,
you know?
dude. I am so grateful for this time. Like we went over so much more than I anticipated. This last piece was huge. The organization with the apps or whatever, the assistant, the supplements, the food, the lifestyle, the everything. Like I appreciate you opening up. I know this is not the normal thing that you do, but this is awesome.
It's my pleasure. And, and also like back to the assistant for a second,
Yep.
it's about, I don't know if this is normal, and my thinking is it might not be. So that's why I want to just talk about it for a
Mhm.
second. My assistant knows that like part of her job is to help me be as productive as possible,
Yep.
with the knowledge that I'm not going to be if she's not around.
Mhm.
Right. Like, so she recognizes that. So it's, yeah, I'm the boss, she's the assistant, but we work much more like a team. And if she thinks I'm wasting time on something, she tells me. And if I have like an opening in my calendar and I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about, she's like, but don't we have that other thing? Like we work together like equals,
Yep.
right? And I am, and when someone on the team really needs something from me, they're talking to her, right? Like, which is great. Like I would prefer we're all like working on this, like we're all rooting for the same thing,
Yep.
And so I've never been the type that pretends to be anything other than what I really am, like as it relates to important relationships, right?
Mhm.
Like, and because like I really want to lean on those people to help me be at my best. And I wouldn't be if I didn't have people like that around. Like to me, it's not shocking to me that like my income and my notoriety and everything really increased dramatically for me when I had like my first coach, who was an older woman who believed in me more than I believed in myself, kind of giving me something maybe that I missed as a child, like not having a mother who did that, that really like made me thrive, right? It was some outside force that cared about me, that like, and it's not that like to this day I still have like an older woman as a coach. I don't, but it's also recognizing though that like I'm not alone. There are other people who want to see me succeed because they do better as I succeed. And I want to enlist them into the reality of whatever is true for me, with an understanding that like I might struggle with this, but we want to collectively handle it better, whatever that looks like, you know? And and I have found that like one of the best brainstorming things is actually ChatGPT, going back and forth with ChatGPT lately.
I agree.
Because it always adds something to what I'm talking about that I
Mhm.
didn't know, right?
Right.
Like, and actually I was just teaching that to Jay Abraham the other night. But yeah, that's that. It sucks, like putting your head on the pillow at night knowing that you could have been better that day,
Hmm.
you know, knowing that, forget about what you got done and what you didn't, but that whatever you got done, you could have gotten more done. Like, you know, like evaluating the day and recognizing you really didn't play full out and you didn't really move things as far as you could have, like you
Yep.
took the easy way out.
You coasted.
And that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to avoid. And that's what I'm trying to get the people around me to help me avoid. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. And the
Cool.
assistant helps. Hey,
A lot.
uh, Steel Air winners.
Yeah.
I don't want to wrap up without giving a little bit of credence to Steel Air winners. That's one of your babies,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's a monster, which by the way, when you first told me about it, had no idea
Right.
how big or how powerful it is. Um, it is amazing. I hear about it from good friends of mine telling me things that they're learning on that platform. So, do you mind? Give me like that's not what this was. You
Right.
weren't expecting me to ask this question. Give us a quick rundown on what it is, and then we'll wrap because I feel like I'm
Sure.
really
Yeah. You
overusing your
know,
time.
there's a, it's actually what I'm working on right now. Let me see if I can just pull up the graph because I can. Yeah. So marketing is really interesting from the standpoint that as far as there is cumulative knowledge in marketing, right? Like positioning, customer segmentation, the principles of direct response, consumer behavior, those kinds of things. That's cumulative, that's timeless, those are principle based, et cetera. But then on a tactical level, tactics come and go. And when tactics are first introduced to a market, they tend to deliver a disproportionate result, like much more than you would have ever expected. And I've personally witnessed that many times over my 2 decades online, right? Whether it was bringing like the VSL to Agora and watching them go from 200 million to over $1 billion in 1 year, or me being a coach making like $25,000 a month and hoping to get like 10 clients or a dozen clients writing a free report that happened to be the first like viral free report, but totally changed my life. Like that one report, like there's never been in my life a bigger significant before and after than that 30-page report, or when we invented the automated webinars or a bunch of other things. And so what I think most people who might not have the same history that I've had online, they haven't seen as many things as I've seen, or they haven't been online as long as I've been, might not recognize that all tactics kind of go through these stages of where they provide insane results and then over time dissipate. And so what Steal Our Winners is all about is about providing people information about tactics that are crushing it right now, with the idea that there is a time lag between when someone figures something out and a course being out about it. And so, like, I have this diagram, and what I'm working on right now is actually to figure out ways to make this diagram clearer for people, like by giving them lots of examples and things like that, right? But that, like, this is the way I see marketing tactics. I see marketing tactics that the yellow line represents the results that the tactic provides, right? And it goes from insiders to masterminds to courses to forums and groups till eventually everybody knows. And when everybody knows, it never produces the same result as it did years earlier when it was just an insider strategy. And the blue line represents the effort to get the result, because the effort to get the result goes up over time. I'm sure Chris and I could go on for hours about times when we were able to sell a lot of something a long time ago that would not work today, right? Like many different things. And that's part of the reason there. What Steal Our Winners does is it just delivers 2 new tactics each and every week. So 104 episodes a year. It kind of looks like Netflix. We have over 200 contributors. And the whole idea behind it is what is working right now and what is working best right now. Because if you don't have anything like that in your marketing arsenal, you're paying a very big price for it. You don't need everything that you do to be on the left-hand side of that graph, but you do need something on the left-hand side of the graph. You need something that gives you an advantage over competitors, because if you have no advantage over competitors, then your business is probably not going to ever break out. And every business that I know online that has broke out based on some tactic that was really providing much bigger performance to the whole company. And so that's what we do at Steal Our Winners. We deliver those types of strategies and tactics that are working the best right now with the experts that invented it. And every episode's like 30 minutes to an hour, and you can find it at Strategic Profits.
Well worth it.